Welcome to Six Pack Discussions, where Cody and Jared take on the biggest, most talked about headlines with logic, passion, and a six-pack of beer.
If you're listening, we challenge you to take an unbiased view of the world, as we know these conversations are complicated. So sit down, crack a beer, and welcome a new perspective. Okay, guys, coming in, six-pack discussions. Been a little bit of a struggle, actually, for me and Jared to get together for 2 weeks. We have not sat
I thought it's been
down.
3, dude.
Maybe 3. Shit, okay.
Yeah, between illnesses, work travel, personal travel.
We have been busy. So busy that we actually are not wearing shoes today while we're recording.
This is actually a Saturday because I actually leave Monday night.
Yeah. I was in Vegas this week.
Yeah, I was in
Jared,
Houston.
I got a little sick last week or this week. Jared, you were traveling last week. So
Yeah, I was in Arkansas the week before. Yeah.
So today, though, we are talking about a semi-sensitive subject. Like, it's weird because I found it not sensitive to learn about, but it's sensitive.
I think the parallels are sensitive.
Yeah.
Right? You know, getting the abortion play called into it, right?
Yeah. So we're talking about medical assisted suicide. Or what's the word? Euthanasia? How do you say that word?
Euthanasia is what
Okay.
It's how I pronounced it in my head as I was reading.
Yeah. I think that's how you say it.
Yeah.
It's a weird word, to be
It
honest. It's Latin, I think.
Aren't totally all, I don't know.
But still,
But even the medical assisted suicide, I mean, that had, 4 or 5 different terms? Physician assisted death.
Yeah.
AID. It was an acronym.
MRID. I saw a couple of weird ones.
Yeah, a lot of, I mean, this.
Yeah. What do we really
But in short, guys, what it is whenever a medical professional has the legal authority to help end someone's life.
Exactly. Usually it's based on a terminal disease, but we'll get into that. Why sometimes it's kind of weird.
That's the slippery
What are we
slope.
drinking, man?
Yeah, so today we're actually going to be drinking a limited series. That's why I got it. It's Sierra Nevada's Juicy Little Thing Hazy IPA. It's actually really weird. I don't think I'm making it up. I want to go get the box, but the box had limited series, but the can doesn't. But I mean, you and I, we've shared this, 3, 4, 5 times now, talking about the problem that we're having with getting beers that we haven't had on the show. And every time, I don't know about you, every time I see a limited edition or a limited series, I have to grab it. I don't care what it is.
Because you're like, oh, I know it's not something that we've had.
Exactly.
So I've had a couple of the Sierra Nevada Juicy Little Things, but I know there's like a couple different types. So you're going to grab that box just to check it out right now? Jared's starting to think maybe he might be losing his mind. Limited Hazy series. Okay, Jared's not lying.
I was like, there's no way I made that up.
Is there a saying on the box? If not, keep the box. Or same thing on the can?
Yeah.
Keep it. So, doing research on this, I did not know at all if this was legal in the United States. Did you?
No, I didn't. But
I thought it was illegal.
Oregon just kept on. I feel like Oregon came up in every single article.
98. They've been doing it for 20 straight years. Yeah. I think that's what I saw.
I thought it was 97. Whatever. Okay. Late 90s.
Probably passed 97. Probably went live 98. You know how those laws. There are now, 10 states? 9 states. 9 states.
And Washington, D.C.
Exactly.
Yep.
So you got California, Colorado, Hawaii, Maine, New Jersey, New Mexico, Oregon, Vermont, Washington State, and D.C. have legalized what they call medical aid in dying, MAID, MAID, via legislation. And really, that means, hey, if I'm... And I wanted to read through, because I actually read through what the law states.
Well, I was going to say, isn't it 2 doctors and it's 15 days in between?
It depends on the state, but a majority of them are something like that.
Isn't that standard practice? So it's 2 different doctors and 15. It's like, all right, so a medical professional and a duration has to elapse, right? And then they have to have a witness. 2 witnesses, I believe.
Yeah, and so what I did is I pulled one that was in the middle. I pulled Colorado's law, because every law was a little bit different.
Of course, left and right,
per the state. I put Colorado's. It felt like the most kind of like in the middle, and then you can think left or right boundaries. Physician's diagnosis must include a terminal illness within 6 months or less to live, and a patient that is mentally capable of making an informed decision.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting, because I bet you if you're kind of towards the end of your life and you have a diagnosis of you're going to die, how often do you think you're probably mentally capable? Maybe less than half.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that limits the group that can actually do it. The physician must request that the patient demonstrate Colorado residency. That makes sense. So you're not moving states to get this. Your point, you have to get 2 different notes, and there has to be a time period of waiting in between.
Yep.
And also it needs to be written as well. So it can't be just
I
a
don't
verbal.
remember seeing them written. Okay.
Well, Colorado's is written. 15-day waiting period. So you know what? Sorry. Oral request, written request to the physician. So you actually have to do 3 of them, I guess, after the 15 days. You need to have make an oral, and then you have to sign something as well. Also, the law cannot affect the status of the health or life insurance policy. I found that kind of odd. So, most
I didn't come across life
yeah.
insurance.
So in life insurance, suicide is usually you don't get paid out. Your family won't get paid out. But if you do it this way, they'll get paid out.
I didn't come across that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an interesting one.
Let me see if there's anything else kind of weird about it in the law. Okay, the oddest thing that when I was doing the research that I had no idea. Not only did I not know it was legal in the United States, right? I thought there's other countries that allow this. I already heard of a couple cases, in mostly Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I believe Denmark or no,
Belgium. Is a big one.
Belgium's the big one, not Denmark.
The Netherlands. Not only did I know we do it here in the United States, but how we do it is kind of interesting. I didn't know that you actually go home with a prescription.
And you ingest it yourself.
Like, for our listeners, I think they think that you go to the hospital and they just essentially IV you up.
That's what I thought as well.
Okay,
that was my as I was reading this on our Google sheet. That's what I had in an operating room, and it was like an IV bag injection.
I kind of was thinking almost like how you visualize a death, what do you call that? When you
Death penalty.
Death penalty.
Yeah.
Like they kind of just
The
hook you
lethal
up to a
injection.
machine and hey, you know what?
No, it's literally a prescription of
Yeah.
ingestibles.
Phenobarbital, I think, is the number one drug. There's a couple different drugs out there that they
I just
make.
feel like it was. I just kept on seeing ingestibles. So
Yeah. So you go home and you take 4 of these pills, and
you're not waking up.
very interesting. I did not think that.
No, I had no idea.
That's funny, right? That's odd. I would say it's odd that our thought process was so wrong on how it actually goes down.
Man, must be hard to write that prescription.
I think it would be even harder to go down to the pharmacy and go pick it up.
I mean, think about it. Think about all the people impacted. Doctor to write it, the pharmacist to fill the pill bottle, and then the person.
Mm-hmm.
Were you able to come across any stats? Because I didn't go down this without talking to you. Did you come across any stats of people who get the prescription and don't?
Mm-mm. I bet you it's pretty high, and that's why they put the waiting period, the 15-day. I bet there's a lot of people that say, you know what, I'm going to do it. And then the doctor's like, okay, well, you have to come back here in 15 days and ask me again. I bet you between that 15 days, they don't come back.
Okay, no, I'm talking about the guys.
I know.
Wait the time, get the prescription, they're in their living room.
I don't think I got the rate of that.
That would,
Yeah, I didn't get that.
so what was your gut telling you? Like, did you go into this research with a preconceived notion on where you were going to stand, and did the research change? I don't want to know your answers yet, but did the research change where you're at?
Jared, I don't know if you realize this, but I have zero bias in
I
my
know.
life.
I know. I'm aware. You honestly just look at everyone with an equal opportunity.
I don't have any blinders.
I'm aware.
I am open.
It's one of
to
my favorite
everything.
things about you, man.
When I was doing research, I was one way. Oh, sorry. Before I was doing research, I was one way. While I was doing research, I was the same way. And then after I reopened and read through my notes again, I changed.
So I changed as well.
Okay.
And it was, so I went into my research thinking that I was hell-bent on a certain stance.
Mm-hmm.
And after doing research and hearing a couple of the
Cases,
and also
the individuals that are actually
yeah. The people that have actually, the stories were written about. So
I have a couple of caveats, and before maybe I even change your mind again here, because I think I know which way you're leaning. I don't know if you know which way I'm leaning. But let me give you an interesting take, as I like to call them.
Mm-hmm.
So Miss Shanty Corte, she is from Belgium. I didn't bring her name up last time I brought her up, but I brought up the case because I thought it was so interesting in a previous episode. She's 17 years old. This is 7 years ago. And she was in the Brussels airport during a terrorist attack that killed 32 different people and injured 300.
Golly, wow.
Extremely,
horrible.
Horrible event. Terrorist attack, suicide bombers, ISIS. Miss Shanty Court, though, 17-year-old, she was in the terminal, was not injured, was not part of any of those individuals that got killed or were injured.
Okay.
From that day on, for the last 5 years, she has been suffering from PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
She's been going to her doctor, who's determined her to have PTSD, and that her mental pain is incurable and unbearable, which are the two required traits in Belgium in which euthanasia can be administered. Her symptoms were sleepless nights and panic attacks. And she'd been prescribed up to 11 different antidepressants that she would take out throughout the day. 11 different, not 11 pills, 11 different antidepressants. She tried to kill herself twice in the last 5 years, failed both times.
Mm-hmm.
She went to her doctor, asked to be killed, via medically assisted suicide, and was medically killed at 23 years of age, 5 years later after that attack. I read that, and I read about this a while back when it actually happened, because I think this was last year.
So.
You haven't heard of that? Okay.
So I remember it coming up on a podcast.
Okay, maybe I just kind of briefly threw it out there.
Okay.
But I didn't go in detail like that. But this is actually why I threw this on the list. I read through this, I think, last year, and I was like, ooh, I didn't even think medical assisted dying was like a big thing. And then I looked into it, and I was like, shit, I didn't know it was this big of a deal. So the weird one for this, and I think this throws us for a little bit of a loop. When I was reading this, the majority of cases were 65 plus individuals that lived long, healthy lives and got some type of, let's just say, gross disease at the end of their life, right? You have a cancer, you have some type of muscular dystrophy, MS, something that just starts shutting down their body. And let's just say their tunnel is ending very quickly, right? Like
you're in a lot of pain.
The writing's on the wall, right? There is no upside. There is no way out. That's what I was envisioning. But then I saw there's a couple of people that were killed that were in their 20s and their 30s.
Yep.
And almost every one of them was not due to some type of brain cancer. It was actually due to depression.
Almost a mental illness,
yes.
if you will.
And that is where I put a little bit of I'm like, ooh, how do you govern around that? Because I don't think she should have been able to do that personally.
Okay.
What do you think about you?
So I was there.
Okay.
I was there, 100%. And this is where this podcast gets real difficult because we do press each other to try to take a stance.
Yeah.
It may be unpopular. It may make people hate us, but I'm going to try to take a stance on this.
Okay.
And my official stance is it hurts me that a 23-year-old thought that there was no way out.
Mm-hmm.
However, hurt people hurt people. And let's say that she truly felt like there was let's say, heaven forbid, let's say I want everyone to endure what I've had to endure so they understand my pain. And she opens fire. She commits her own terrorist incident. So I would much rather, if I have to take a stance, I would much rather that 23-year-old girl ingest the pills to do it in a safe way, commit suicide, if you will, rather than her opening fire.
Interesting.
How many times do we come across these all too often occurring incidents and it's found out that the shooter has some type of mental illness?
So you're saying, hey, let's slow or limit the bleed or slow the bleed for the group of people, not the individual.
Well, if the individual, these mentally unstable,
they're affecting a population of
exactly.
people.
So I would much rather than just infect themselves with their decision rather than harm others. Like I said, hurt people, man.
This is where I'm not trying to get clicks here by any means, but the thing that goes through my head is gangrene. Cut the limb off. Right? Like no one wants to cut their own hand off, but at a certain point,
it sounds callous. It sounds cold, but that's my stance, and that's why if you're forcing me to look, that's whenever you individualize it, that hurts. That hurts me to say that I'm okay with a 23-year-old taking her own life, but that's my rationalization is because these hurt people where they don't see a way out. They want everyone to understand their pain. And I'm overgeneralizing, guys. I get it.
Yes. Some of these people are just going to commit suicide. Anyway, some of them will fix themselves. And then
some
outliers
of them will
harm others.
Exactly.
And we, of course, see this in America.
Did you get that take?
Dude, it's a fantastic take. Like, it's a way to defend in a good manner. Like, you're saying, hey, I don't want you to do this. But the last thing I want is the worst thing.
Yes.
It's you're picking two different evils.
Correct.
And the lesser is that, unfortunately, one life is lost.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. I like your stance. And when I was researching, we kind of alluded, of course. When I was researching, I was like, I'm against it completely. I'm like, I don't like suicide. First off, I didn't know how common it was in the U.S. And I was like, okay, well, who are the people that are dying? And I found out that it was mostly terminally ill, 65, 70-year-olds. Plus, okay, well, now you got me kind of changing my mind a little bit. The only reason I'm a little leery, and this is why I said I wonder if you could legislate around this, is for the younger people. I think this temporary mental disease, mental illness, whatever it may be, it's temporary. I get it. Maybe for her, it seemed like it's forever.
I know.
But let's be honest. 5 years is a drop in the bucket.
In the grand scheme of life.
For 50 more years of maybe a fantastic life. And that's where I got kind of like, oh, she's going to miss out on so many great things. How many people she's going to affect positively?
But are you being optimistic there? You're on 11 different antidepressants.
And the other thing I was thinking with this, I was wondering if that is the reason she was having all these issues.
Oh, the chemical imbalance in hers, in her physical makeup?
Because of the antidepressants.
Yes, exactly.
Not that they were trying to solve it. I think the having 11...
I can't even name 11 antidepressants.
Zoloft, that's what I got.
That's
and we did the episodes.
Prozac, right?
Prozac's another, yeah. Like, okay, do those two, you take both of those in a day? Do we really know there's no...
Counterbalancing or...
Get some type of
counter interaction.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
That's what
like, holy shit. But anyways, she's taking all these drugs, and I'm like, maybe that's actually causing this permanent PTSD.
So there's a component of that. You know what's actually really interesting? Is it a stretch? Not trying to be an asshole here. Is it a stretch to call all those drugs like some level of impairment? I think that'd be reasonable to say that she was a walking impaired person being on all those drugs. No different than if you and I drink 11 beers every single morning, we're going to be screwed up the rest of the day. So how can you actually ask a doctor?
You can't.
So did she have to have some type of sobering up period by not being on those drugs? Like what? I didn't get that granular in the laws, but surely that would be no different than me going to a tattoo artist drunk off my ass. That's a permanent decision.
I think some of those drugs actually say you're not able to operate heavy machinery because there is a mental impairment.
But did you see in the laws, you cannot be impaired?
Dude,
hold on, because I didn't.
That is actually a good idea. That's a fantastic little hole here because you go to your doctor to ask for this, and they say, well, one of the things you need, clearly I already meant that, said that from the Colorado law, is that you have to be mentally capable of making that decision.
Yes.
Well, if I showed up, to your point, 3 beers deep on IPAs, and the doctor is like, hey, man, have you been drinking? And I say, yes. should I be even able to ask to have medical suicide? If it was 3 beers, they would probably say no.
But
If
because it's 311
prescribed
antidepressants.
antidepressants.
No, guys. Alcohol is a drug. Just because we don't go to our pharmacist,
No,
alcohol is a drug.
I know, but I wonder if it's because it's prescribed. They're essentially saying, well, it can't be messing with you mentally because it's a prescription. I think that's a problem. I think you found a problem there is you probably need to be sober for a certain period of time off the drugs, whatever that period of time, to get all of those SSRIs out of your system. You get re-chemically balanced to what your normal would be, even if your normal is not right.
Dude, I'll go as far as to say that's a non-negotiable for me. On my official stance on this, you have to be in your normal state of mind. Now, of course, a con of that is the reason why, in theory at least, not from our opinions based on our previous episodes, but the reason why they prescribe all those is because there's clearly a chemical imbalance and they're merely just trying to balance you out. So they would make the argument, and a reasonable argument, that those drugs are purely making those normal to where you can make that life-altering choice.
Just last year, Harvard came out.
Would you agree that's the con of our point?
Yeah, but the funny thing is the chemical imbalance thing has been proven fake by Harvard. So Harvard came out.
I've heard of them.
They came out last year with a study that they've been doing for, I think, like 10 years or 15 years, studying people that have been on antidepressants versus not, and when they come off of them. And they take blood tests and they do CAT scans and all that stuff. And they found out that the chemical imbalance that these big pharma companies have been selling does not exist. There is no chemicals or hormones in your brain. Mainly dopamine and serotonin are the things that you're measuring, right? And what they say is that your serotonin levels are suppressed or your dopamine levels are suppressed. And that's the reason that you feel bad all day long, forever.
So let me get this straight. So the way I've always understood the chemical imbalance saga, if you will, whatever. If I take drug X and let's say my body naturally produces X, but let's say I'm low on it. I take X, my body will then say, okay, well, I don't even need to make that anymore. That is not a true statement, is what you're saying?
No, so it's mainly to do with the receptors and dopamine. So let's just simplify this for my own sake, be honest, because I'm not that smart. These little square, let's say there's like these little like guys that look like this, right?
Okay.
And a square is dopamine.
Okay.
Right? So this is a receptor, and you got a bunch of these in your little brain, my brain. And dopamine kind of free floating around, you produce this, your hormones produce dopamine, and they fit in there perfectly. And when it fits in, you feel happy.
Happy, okay.
Okay? And you have that happening all day long.
Great.
And what happens is when you get a flush of dopamine, let's say you have 20 receptors, and let's say just on average, you got 2 or 3 dopamines kind of floating around and inserting themselves in. That's just normal happiness. Throughout the day, you're 2 out of 20 happy. Right? Well, maybe some people really enjoy getting off on Fridays. When they get in the car, your body floods yourself with a little reward because you know you're going to go party, you're going to go do whatever. You get 10 little guys. Okay? Let's say you're having sex. Let's say you're drinking alcohol. Let's say you're doing something that your body really likes doing. You got 20 dopamines that fill all those receptors. That's really happy. So what the idea was over the last 40, 50 years since Zoloft came out, I think in the 70s, I think that was the first big one. Prozac's another big one, right? What they said is that your body, right, doesn't have those receptors, or those receptors are kind of blocked. They're not perfectly square. They're kind of like this shape. So the square, the dopamine can't fit in properly. So what the drug does, so when you take Zoloft, it's able to fit in that receptor, and you still get that good feeling.
Okay.
So that's what they've been selling. That's the chemical imbalance, right? You have the receptor, but it doesn't work right. So what we're going to do is we're going to develop this drug that fits in there properly. And yeah, you're going to produce some dopamine and some serotonin, but we're going to fill the gap so that you don't have only 2 all day long. You get the waves. Right?
Yep.
You're getting off on Fridays, you're having sex, you're drinking a little bit of drinks and buddies, all that kind of fun stuff.
Okay.
So you get the waves. That's what you want. Why our bodies are meant to go through fun and
ebbs and flows.
And flows. The problem is they just determined that little curve thing, that receptor that's messed up, does not exist. Right? There are people out there that produce less dopamine and less serotonin, right? Which would mean that they're less happy. But the Zoloft thing, the whole thing of them making, being able to fill those gaps, in some cases they found in this study that the actual Zoloft was taking the spots of the serotonin and the dopamine and filling those gaps and staying there longer so that you're not getting new dopamine in there, right? So then all of a sudden what would happen is that new dopamine is the best. It's fresh. It's like, okay, let's say the first 80% is the best. The last 20% kind of, it's just like fizzling out. It wears off. And the Zoloft was kind of staying in there for a while. And that's why sometimes when you hear people that when they're on an antidepressant, they feel like they would say like they're zombie Phil. They feel a little They're not down, but they're not happy. They're And it's because they're always in that kind of like using the last little bit. It's not the good new stuff. And so anyways, the whole chemical imbalance thing just got thrown out last year. I think the pharmaceutical companies they're kind of trying to figure out another.
They're probably trying to suppress it.
They're trying to figure out another marketing, because that was what everybody's been marketed. And I always thought that was true. We'll have to maybe we should jump, because we did one on that one a while back, but this is new data. And I would love to kind of say, what is up with this whole chemical imbalance thing? Because I don't like that. That's a marketing thing.
Dude, there's a lot of bullshit marketing things out there, man.
Almost all of it is.
Oh my gosh.
Almost all of it is.
How marketers sleep at night sometimes is beyond me. But
the funny thing is
sales is probably worse, but
sales just take the marketing and act upon it. Let's just be honest.
Sales just takes the marketing and puts even more bullshit on top of it.
They act upon it. They're like, no, you were debating that was true? No, it is true.
It's true. 4 to 5 doctors didn't say it. Actually, I talked to the 5th one. He said it too.
Okay, so in the U.S.
No, dude. We're not screwing up. We're on our second beer. I'm blaming you now. All right. So, guys, this is hold on. Let me read the little story that
do it.
Cody violently threw at me earlier.
What are we drinking?
So we are drinking the limited Hazy IPA series from Sierra Nevada, and Cody made up the story. What I guess it's a quick little thing. A juicy little thing supercharges the hop squeeze, serving up fresh picked flavor on pillowy malt.
That's it?
Speaking of malt marketing bullshit, get your juicy fill now before the next Hazy IPA rotator hits. Hold on. We've read a lot. Have you ever read the words in your life?
Pillowy malt?
Serving up fresh picked flavor on a pillowy malt.
Oh my God. So right now, guys,
I quit.
Okay, let's give it a ranking before I tell you this funny thing.
Pillowy malt. All right, hold on. Dude, honestly, Sierra Nevada, and this is just my, because dude, we've done how many beers now?
I don't know, 85,
all of them?
86.
I feel like every Sierra Nevada, their floor is high, but their ceiling is low for me.
I think the same. They have a very similar taste to me.
I would be hard pressed if you blindfolded me and put 5 Sierra Nevadas that I could taste one difference in note.
Yeah.
Would you agree? High floor, low ceiling? Like they're always solid beers, but they're never memorable beers.
I like how you're putting it to be nice. I think they're all the same. Like if you, just like you said, if you gave me one of these and closed my eyes, I'd be like, yeah, it's Sierra Nevada. Now, that might be good because they have a distinct flavor with maybe just some little things. Yep. This is
3.7 for me.
3.7?
3.7 all day long. I think it's a solid beer. I'd get it again. I just know exactly what I'm getting. Limited series, no limited series, hazy, traditional. I know what I'm getting with Sierra Nevada. I don't think they changed the recipe, but I'm okay with it. Just don't bullshit me. Just say, hey.
3.2.
Okay. We're a little off then.
Yeah, a little off. 3.2. It's not, like I took a couple drinks of it and I was like, this isn't that good. I'll drink.
It's drinkable.
Drink it. Yeah, but it's not like I'm like, I don't think I'd actually order this again. So 3.2-ish.
Depends what my options are, but
yeah.
I just know exactly what I'm getting with Sierra Nevada. Nope. And that can be good, that can be bad.
100%.
But all right, funny little story.
Yeah, so right now I was like, man, it's kind of hot. Did you feel a little hot in here? No.
Sure.
I was like a little hot. I've been working out in the yard all day, so maybe my skin's just a little burnt.
Yeah.
And so I was like, it was a little hot. So I just turned it down right from my phone. And I use Google thermostat, right? It's like, connected to your phone. And I noticed they're getting a little aggressive on controlling your temperature. Talking about Big Brother and everything in past episodes, of course. But what I just noticed is right now when I was trying to turn it down, it like pushed it back up. And I did it again, thinking, oh, it's just an error in the app. Did it again. Tried it one more time and did it again. And it wasn't an error in the app. It was actually moving at multiple degrees and trying to just go 1 degree cooler, even though I wanted to go 4 degrees cooler. And the other day, I walked past my thing and I bumped it down, which it's wintertime right now. It's not like I'm bumping my AC on. It's just like whenever I feel a little warm, I'm like, oh, I'll bump it down 1 degree. Because really, it's like...
You just got to get that air conditioner on, get a fresh...
Yeah, exactly.
Fresh little hit of dopamine for the house.
And the only reason why I'm like, it's not an error of the app is that it actually said, hey, energy use is high in your local area right now. We recommend that you don't go any cooler than this degree. And I was like, ooh.
So they're looking at everyone in your neighborhood with a Google.
No, I think that was a blank message. Did not matter who I was, where I was.
It's Google.
I know they know the data.
Who knows more, Apple or Google?
Google does.
Ty.
Google.
No, dude, come on.
You think so, Ty?
You mean to tell me that, yeah, you're using that on an Apple device?
I think Google knows more.
Oh, man.
But anyways, still, what do you think about that? Like, should Google be telling me what temperature's right?
So I don't think they're trying to big brother you. I think they're just trying to be cost effective.
They're not paying my AC bill. I am.
So hold on, maybe I misinterpreted it. I almost interpreted that as like, hey, you're on peak. Are you sure you want to do that?
Oh.
That's how I interpreted that. So maybe I'm wrong.
They could be doing that. I thought they were trying to say, hey, don't be wasting precious energy. Just be a little hotter.
Maybe. I'd be curious. I'd be curious to see what plan you're on from a peak standpoint.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
hey, also speaking of past episodes, speaking about future episodes now, I got to bully one to the top.
What? Which one?
Tipping. So it's not on there yet. One of our long-term listeners, she listens literally religiously every week.
Okay.
She gets so pissed about this whole concept of tipping, like how it's literally swept every facet, every avenue of retail,
Yeah.
it seems.
It's
So
funny.
she wants us to talk about tipping.
I went out to a dinner in Vegas talking about tipping, and I'm out at dinner, and the bill comes. I wasn't actually paying. But I was like, hey, can I ask, what are you going to tip? Because it was expensive dinner.
$1,000.
Yeah, no, not that expensive, but it was still expensive dinner, steak dinner and stuff.
Yeah.
It wasn't a lot of people.
I heard
So
Vegas is really cheap.
I was like, what are you going to percentage tip on that? Because it was horrible service, to be honest. And they're like 20. I was like, oh, okay. Is that normal? Like for you? Yeah, 20 or more. And I was like, oh. And they're like, you do less? I was like, well, do you guys think that was good service? No. I was like, okay. So you give 20. I'm like, by chance, can I ask, were you in food service before? Yeah, I worked 10 years in food service. It's like, oh, okay, bartender. So it's funny because you can always see who tips higher, and it's people that worked in that industry, and then they're out of it, and now they're like kind of like rewarding it.
Yeah, paying it backwards.
Which I'm not. You can tip whatever you fucking want. I don't care.
It's your money.
It's your money. But I also don't like that there is like this standard where you almost get reprimanded for being in a place like I was.
Dude.
I know you're even worse than me. So
I am. I was dumbfounded. This was, I was traveling for work. No, I was in Tampa. This is a few weeks ago. I was in Tampa. Took a client out for dinner, and it was great. So my standard, and hold on, this is the last story because we're getting way the hell off course.
I'm good with it.
My standard, I would say, like, hey, like, awesome, you kicked ass, 20%. Like, I think that's a solid tip for a decent bill.
Unless somebody comes to my table and like amazes me, they're not getting more than 20. And I've a couple of times I have tipped more than 20 where I'm like, this person.
I'd say around holidays.
Yeah.
And okay, but anyways.
Yeah, go ahead.
So they come around with that little, I think it's toast that makes it to where you stick your card in right there at the table. The starting, so it goes to like kind of like, hey, you're cheap. Hey, this is what I'm expecting. Hey, I kicked ass.
22, 5.
25, 30, 35.
You hit other.
And it's so awkward because they're holding it and they know I'm pressing other. I'm like, dude, I get I'm expensing this, but I still treat it like my own money.
Yeah, 100%.
I couldn't believe the starting, like the left, the cheap broke people, 25. I was like, all right. All right, we'll get into that. I'm sure a lot more. That'll be fun, but I got to bully that one up to the top of our list. I mean, this is probably, I bet she's one of the few people that has listened to every single episode.
Okay, let's do it.
So we got to do her solid.
Add it on there, bump it up. Honestly, if it's on the next one, I'll read it and be like, okay, I got some researching tipping.
Okay.
It's not even like you could have to tell me that it's not on there. Like, you put it on there and just add a line.
I could have actually just told you, hey, dude, our next one is tipping. Oh, yeah.
As long as it's on the list, though. Because if you tell me that, I'll research whatever's next. I am a robot when it comes to reading that list. I'm like, what's next? Dude.
Speaking of robots, we do have to talk about ChatGPT eventually, but.
Oh, yeah, let's do that too.
So.
Dude, so
back to the task
suicide.
at hand. Assisted suicide, man.
So you're landing right now because of the implications to others around them, possibly. Why is it even an option? It should be, or why is it not even an option for everybody? If you're feeling down in the dumps and you're possibly I don't know what's the right term there is, violent to other individuals.
Yeah.
And you want to kill yourself? Why not?
Yeah. And honestly, like, I know this sounds morbid. I know it sounds horrible. But I would much rather, honestly, it's the same reason about the whole drug episode. I would much rather you take things like, so these people that just take 100 fucking ibuprofen to suicide, all you're going to do is die a very slow, painful death and eat out your organs. Like, it's horrible. Like, if you are that committed to killing yourself, I'd much rather you do that than open fire on someone else. Or, heaven forbid, you freaking have your kids walk in on you and you're hanging there. Like, do it in a respectful way, I guess. I don't know. So, honestly, I'm actually against it to where, hey, if you really want to kill yourself, I don't even think it needs to be a terminal disease for a physician-assisted death.
So, do you know anybody that's ever committed suicide?
I was acquaintances with a couple guys in college, but I will never say I knew them that committed suicide.
I know two people, and I think you're forgetting about one person.
Good point.
Right? In high school?
I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
We didn't know her.
Him. You ever thinking of somebody else?
Oh, I was thinking of the Tar Water's mom.
Oh, well, shit, I know three, I guess. I knew her. I met her a couple times.
Yeah, the PTA, yeah.
Yeah. You're thinking of somebody that was in our class. You're not thinking of them.
Oh, shit, him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because you were actually buddies with him in college. I thought you went to like a few parties with him in college.
His brother.
Oh.
His brother was a year older than us.
Okay.
But he was our age, and he did that in our senior year.
Yeah.
And then I know one other. And the worst one, though, is one of my wife's father's good friends. I'm not going to say names, of course, but...
Shit, I forgot about him.
Yeah. I know that one's a rough... Just bringing it up, even
well,
though it was...
Shit, actually, no. You're forgetting about...
I'm forgetting... You're the one so far that's forgot all of them, but... Okay, go ahead.
He went to Hamilton. Basketball player. We were just talking about him with Kurt.
I guess I don't know.
Like right whenever you first met Kurt, you're like, "Oh, did you know?"
Maybe. You'll have to tell me off air.
Yeah,
off air. But
you'll remember
the one that kind of strikes me, right? I all of these are striking to me, right? Because I think most of our listeners probably know, and it's funny because I asked Jared that, and he's like, "I don't think anybody I know really well." But all of a sudden, it's like the list is actually pretty big. The one that hits me, though, I never met this gentleman, met his family, but my wife's father's friend, one of his good friends. He hung himself in his backyard with two children to find him with his wife. And I look at that, I'm like, I get it. People are in low spots in life. But I think there might be a better way to do it. to your point, ibuprofen, overdose on heroin, hang yourself in your backyard, shotgun to the throat, whatever it is. There's better ways to do it. And that image
You can't unsee that.
for children,
You fuck them up for life.
and you brought it up that you're going to harm other people possibly. Physically, you could do it, or emotionally, you could do it. And I think it's probably more likely the emotional one. There's, of course, these crazy individual kids, usually young boys that go out and do mass
Right.
shootings. But the majority of these incidents are actually just a father or a mother committing suicide and the body just being found in a completely wrong way. And I guess if you get this medical release, now here's the issue. Of all those people, I don't know if any of them could have gotten the medical assisted suicide
In the current law. Yeah.
Exactly. In any of these laws in these states.
That's why.
Do you think it should be easier then?
Yeah. Yeah.
You think I go there and I say, hey, I do 15 days, first day, 16th day.
Yeah. So I'm still okay with the waiting period because it is a permanent decision.
Yeah, and I think most people probably opt out on day 16. What do you think?
Great.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm scared shitless to die, man. I don't want to die.
But you've went through hard days,
Hell yeah, I have.
hard weeks,
Hell yeah.
and I'm sure a couple times you're like, man, you know what? Maybe it's just a little bit easier to not do this shit.
Dude,
For that minute.
course.
For that
Of course.
hour.
You're a freaking liar if you haven't said that to yourself.
Exactly. But guess what? 15 days later, you've already forgotten that moment happened.
Yeah, you're on to bigger and better things.
Bingo. But if you're still doing it after 15 days, you've had some issues.
If you still want to make that permanent
You think it should be
decision,
even easier then?
yes. Because what that's going to do is that's going to force you to have a conversation with your spouse. That's going to force you to have a conversation maybe with Anna's dad.
Interesting.
Your buddy. So, and maybe I'm just living on rainbows and sunshines over here and thinking that that's going to solve it. But I would much rather give the person the dignity to at least go out in a little bit more humane way rather than forcing their children, their wives, their whomever to walk in on them hanging or, God forbid, bled out in a tub or whatever, man. Whatever. So I would like to. I'm a big
Personal.
yeah,
Yeah, I know.
autonomy guy. If you
And
will.
that was funny. That was one of the things that popped up as a pro. Is
The autonomy.
that It's like, hey, do we have body autonomy? And most of our society would say we do to an extent.
So, and that's where I saw a lot of parallels, and I don't know if you did, with abortion.
Uh-huh. Well, it depends on what is a body, right? Of course, but yeah.
I think we already talked. Yeah, we already talked about that on here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm against abortion, but then here am I a hypocrite? And I think the reason why I lie is because the baby doesn't have a choice. You're clearly against their choice. I'm allowing the human, the grown up, the adult, to make a choice.
Yeah,
For themselves,
yeah.
not for someone else.
And that train of logic for you is solid because we already argued if you show up to your doctor's office and say, hey, I want to kill myself, but you're wasted, drunk, that doctor should say, come back tomorrow when you're sober.
Yeah.
Like, if you're making a choice that is not actually in an able-bodied form, exactly, able-bodied form,
Love it.
right? Is whatever it means is like, are you able to consciously make a decision? And would you have made that decision tomorrow, yesterday, whatever it may be? And if you're, of course, 4 beers deep, 5 beers deep, let's say you're on some type of hallucinogen, if you're on 11 different antidepressants, you're not able-bodied. So your logic is holding strong there, right? Dude, I'm still torn because
I know.
my issue is this. It's so much wasted life, precious life. People, especially in the Western civilization, do not understand how much easier life is here than it is in most parts of the world, and how much easier it is 100 years ago than it was 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 500 years ago. And so now all of a sudden, exactly, life is so much easier. It has gotten easier in so many ways. And to your point, there are still people that are upset. But who am I to tell you what to do with your body?
Thank you.
And that's where I get.
Thank you.
It's like one of those things where I want to.
So
I
want it for you.
I know,
but I can't make you want it. I want it for you. I don't want them to make that final decision. I don't want them to make that permanent choice.
But who am I?
But I can't make you want it, Cody. And I'm using Cody in general.
Fuck. It's one of those things where you want to just pray for him. You want to,
dude.
You want to help him out.
It would hurt me so. Dude, I am very fortunate. That's why I have 4 no shit friends in this world. Right? Try to do anything for. It would kill me if any of you 4 decided to make that permanent decision. I don't want that for any of you 4. But I can't want it for you.
Do you have any limitations? Okay,
can you elaborate on that one?
You're pulling me along here on this conversation. Do you have any limitations?
Can you define limitations?
So there's limitations in the laws. Terminal illness is one of them. Okay. Let's just say terminal illness seems a little loose here now that PTSD is one of them.
Yep.
It seems like in Brussels. I don't think here it probably is, but let's just say it is. Do you have any limitations?
I'm king for a day. Yeah. I don't. If a grown-ass adult...
18 and plus.
18 plus.
So 18 plus, 15-day waiting period. That's a limitation, but yes.
15, sure. Just because that seems like it's in that middle ground. I do want a waiting period because I want someone to have to vocalize it. I actually like that. I think it was Colorado. Vocalize it twice and then write it down.
Yeah.
I actually like the mixed mediums. You have to vocalize it because that takes balls. And then you got to do it again. Whew. Okay. Now you got to write it down. Okay. Fine. We've waited our due.
And then you have to go pick up your prescription. And you have to take it. So
Yep.
there's actually like 5 steps.
So I'm okay with that, honestly.
You like the...
I want all 5 of those steps.
Okay.
I just don't want to have any type of asterisk, no terminal illness.
So no terminal illness.
Nope.
Does anybody in my family need to know that I'm doing this?
So honestly,
I'm married. Have kids.
I don't mind. So I don't mind like a notarized. It needs to be notarized because I need to know it's legit from either next of kin or your spouse. Not and, just or.
Like stating that they are okay with me.
I've had this conversation. Not that you're okay, just that I've had the conversation with them.
Well, no one's gonna sign that unless they're okay with it.
It's not. The signature is not an admittance of agreement. It's an admittance of like this event happened.
Jared, you take this document to Brittany and you say, "Hey, Brittany, I need this document signed from my doctor. I'm gonna go pick up prescriptions to kill myself next Friday." She's not fucking signing that.
Then good.
Okay, but I'm just letting you know.
Yeah,
right? Like
good.
Because now she's finding out for this for the very first time.
But
that's what I was wondering.
Exactly. But how many times does that spouse not even get the opportunity to know? That's how dark of a place I'm in. How many times does that wife walk in on that husband hanging there?
That's why I asked that question. I was wondering because just for instance, right? Let's just say, yeah, you need to have 3 different signatures, right? 1 family member, 2 people that you know. There's some things that are kind of like this. It's kind of weird for like jobs and things like that, right? You can't have more than 1 family member. So, unfortunately, you're on that list for me if I'm committing suicide, medical suicide. And so I'm like, hey, Anna, my wife, you can put Jared on there, and then one of my kids, right, when they're older.
Yep, I'll say. I think Lillian can
figure
out her name.
Just saying, like,
I'm kidding.
Let's put you guys on there. And so you get this, you're like, what the fuck? They had no idea.
Yeah.
Right? I send this over to you via email, and you're calling me right away. You're like, dude, what the fuck is this? I had no idea you're in a low place like this.
So I love you, right?
Yeah.
So I let's say I drive over, I fly over if I need to.
Yeah.
And then we talk.
I know, right? And
I don't sign it though, but we talk.
Exactly. And I like that idea. That's why I'm trying to figure out what is your requirement. Because I think having a no bars, 15-day wait period, go pick up your prescription. I think you need to notify the people around you that will be impacted. And the doctor just needs, I think
that's such a hard law to write though.
I know.
That's why I think you almost have to say spouse if married.
Yeah.
If not married, next of kin. I think it's one.
Okay. Like, yeah.
Just
agree.
because in order to write it into law, because I get it, this is a monarchy, I'm a king, but I still don't want to piss off my people, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's spouse or next to
Some
kin.
people don't have a circle like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're like, hey, you know what? Let's at least notify those people. Now, what if they don't sign it?
Good. I don't want them to.
You that wants to commit suicide does.
Tough.
You're gonna
tough shit. Because if I'm not going to sign it, that means I love you.
And now
if you don't love the person, you don't give a shit. Yeah, actually, you're a menace. Because unfortunately, man, you and I are very fortunate in the fact that we have people that wouldn't sign it.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, there's some dark people that have done some dark things.
I don't know, dude. I don't know how many people would sign that paper.
I hope you're right.
I think it's a very small minority of people that would sign it, even for their
Hope you're right.
spouse. But let's just say you get that paper and you're ready to go, right? And your spouse won't sign it. You have the conversation. You tell them why you're doing it. They're like, well, I'm still not going to sign it because the last thing I want to do is be responsible for the reason you killed yourself. Because they're going to think, they're like, hey, you're not responsible for me. I need to do this because it's a law.
Yep.
And they're like, okay, well, I'm not going to do it. And they're like, okay, well, I'm going to have my daughter sign it, or I'm going to have my best friend sign it. I'm going to have a power of attorney sign it, or whoever it is, right? Go through the list. It must be a hard job to legislate this shit.
Oh my gosh. Because you have to what if it to death.
Do you see what I'm doing right now? I'm what ifing it to death.
Yeah. And honestly, maybe it's you have to videotape you having a conversation with your spouse then. If they're not going to sign it and you are hellbent and they're not doing anything to help you, or then fine, video it. As long as some type of irrefutable acknowledgement.
That's all we're trying to do is just acknowledge that you did it, have that conversation.
Yep.
And you still want to go through it.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of these people, if they have that conversation.
Can you imagine, and I hope this never happens to either one of us, our spouses, our loved ones, etc. Of course not, right? But could you imagine I come to you in this very room saying, Cody, I can't express the pain that I've been dealing with. I want to end my life. And I'm being serious.
Hey, Brittany won't sign this, but I need somebody else.
Can you imagine what you would feel borderline instantly?
I don't think I would, and this is rare for me, is talk. I would probably just hug you until you said stop. Like, it could be a day. I would just keep on. I wouldn't be able to break the silence.
So, and that's why you need to voice that to a loved one. Because these people are making permanent choices without ever giving their loved ones,
and that's why
their loved ones, the opportunity to help them.
And that's why I think you have to have that. Because I think a lot of these people commit suicide without knowing how much their loved ones actually love them. I think they think they're in a lost space that is loveless, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean,
It's fucking sucky.
It's sucky.
I don't even know there's a better word, but it's just sucky.
I think
it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me, but also it makes sense to me that there is that place.
But also, I do want to make it abundantly clear. You and I are very blessed, very fortunate that we can't get there.
Well, I don't know if can't is a real word. You know, like I think everybody goes through life thinking that they can't get there.
Until they are there.
Exactly.
Until they're there.
Exactly. And I'm sure there's a decision. There is a addiction. There is a attitude that could bring everything to a fault. Like there's plenty of people that you know that have addictions. And it's funny, not even drug addictions. Just addictions.
I know. Vices.
Exactly. Vices. And I think once you run that vice to a point of almost no return, think of gambling, right? There's a lot of vices out there. that run you to a spot that you now have to make a just absurd conversation. You have to have an absurd conversation with your spouse, right? There's people out there that just have gambled themselves to $150,000
Hey,
in
honey,
debt.
I don't know how we're going to make our mortgage payment
Bingo.
next
They
month.
have to have that conversation, and they've already tried to figure out how to gamble themselves out of that 100
Borrow their
times.
ways out of it.
Exactly. And now they're going to have that conversation. And let's say for males, that is a point where they're like, I can't provide for my family. How do I get out of it? Now, 5 years earlier, they could have been rolling on fucking high winds. High winds. Making a lot of money, doing really well, gambling money away and losing it. Who cares? Because they were making so much money.
Yeah, you're gambling with house money.
Exactly. And all of a sudden, 5 years later, they're like this. So the funny thing is that I say that, you say that, I say that. I don't know how I could be there. I don't know how you could be there. I don't know how any of my friends could be there. I don't know how my spouse could be there. I don't know how my kids could be there. But clearly, it happens. And the funny thing is that social economics don't even seem to mess with who does this.
No. You know what?
Richest, poorest.
So you know what's actually really interesting? And so this goes against my King Jared for a day, right? But the present, you know, as far as the laws are today,
Yeah.
it has to fit, you know, the medium of these laws. It has to fit, you know, the terminal illness and things like that, right? And one of the cons in this is because we don't have a universal healthcare system. You know, the prescription costs about $150 to $200.
Is that what it was?
$150 to $200 to pick up the prescription. So let's say
There's actually like a cost to dying.
it is. So let's say you're Cody Willis. You are a normal American. You're making $50,000 a year. Actually, you're one of the top performers at 31 years old, making $50,000 a year.
Okay.
And let's say you do not have health insurance. You're a part of the 14.7% that don't.
Okay.
All of a sudden, you get hit with a $250,000 medical bill. You got a string of bad luck.
Mm-hmm.
You are putting your family in an insurmountable amount of debt,
Yeah.
or you can end your life for $150. So $150,000 in debt to execute the surgeries, the therapies, to make you back to 100%. You all but obliterate the next 30 years of your life
In debt.
in debt. So you do that to your family, to your wife, to your kids. Or for $200, doesn't impact your, as you nicely mentioned earlier, doesn't impact your life insurance that you were responsible enough to protect your family for. Your wife can pay off her house.
So I will say, if you're opening the doors to no terminal illness, I don't think life insurance exists.
I'd agree with that. I think that evaporates an industry.
Yeah. Yeah. If
It can't.
Yeah.
They would go under tomorrow.
Exactly. There'd be too many people that would.
We can do a whole new episode on insurance alone, but
Yeah. So I don't think life insurance exists in this world. Right?
Okay, fair.
I think it
no,
exists.
that's today though.
Yeah.
Today, they're talking about essentially what it was is a little bit of a woke article, but I wanted to get some more perspective, and I thought it was interesting
Yeah.
how the stats are shit. I forget what state.
It's probably like Washington or Oregon. Those guys are pretty depressed.
No. It wasn't. Shoot, it may have been Colorado, but I wonder if Colorado is only in my head just because we've been mentioning it all throughout this episode. But it was a state where it was only 51% of the vote it passed by
Okay. For what?
to medically assisted suicide
Oh,
be
yeah.
legal.
That is Colorado. It's recent, and that makes sense.
It's 51%.
Okay.
But then they started doing a little analysis on the 51%.
Mm-hmm.
And of that 51%, it was like 80% of them were families that made over $100,000 a year. And then like of the 49% that voted no, 80% was below families that made under 50,000, i.e. the people that weren't insured. So they were talking about that as in like a dig at, they didn't know if people wanted to just, end their life because of financial reasons. But then whenever they spun it, I was like, hold on, the people that were voting yes could afford it. So they were saying, are people just feeling bad for them? So they're almost voting against what their own situation is.
That feels like a spin on a spin, though.
It maybe is, but it was still thought provoking to where I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Are we only thinking about this because you and I do have insurance or HSAs?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
So because that is so popular now, are people feeling bad for the others? It's almost like the name change of sports teams.
I just
So
don't.
you're feeling bad for people that don't.
I don't
apply
think
to?
that people are killing themselves though if they're poor. I don't think that's a thing.
I hope you're right.
I think people that kill themselves probably that are depressed, and I bet you more depressed people actually have more money. I don't know. It's probably 50-50, but I don't know. Like, I don't know if people are killing themselves because or want to kill themselves because they're poor. Now, I bet you they fall in weird times, the gambling habits, things like that. But I don't think it's like generally based on that they're poor or they're in the lower social economic class.
I hope
But
you're right.
I think it's probably pretty averaged out. I don't think it's like there's an absurd amount of people that are earning less than $20,000 a year or whatever that are like, that's not. I don't think that's an issue.
So as we're concluding, I clearly made my stance and my way forward clear.
Yeah.
What is your stance after our conversation, your research, et cetera? What is your stance, and then what is your way forward if an adjustment?
You're changing my mind a lot. I was going to say I'm good with Colorado law across the board.
Kind of that even keel, left and right boundary. No.
Yeah, that's why I have it. I was like, you know what? Terminal illness. I knew somebody that had a terminal illness, and it wasn't legal in Arizona. And, he took a little bit of a back door, and luckily he knew the right people to do that. But, you're 73 years old, and you take that out. I'm like,
He was in a lot of pain.
Yeah, exactly. Why not? Why not do that? If you have to just kind of, the funny thing is that you have to do that illegally.
I know.
And
so is that always the safest way?
Exactly. No, it should be like this. Hey, you know what? I'm in a lot of pain. There's no way out. I'm 73 years old. I'm already been knocking on death's door for 10 years. Let's just say. It should be fairly easy to say, you know what? I'm already taking 24 pills a day. I'm going to add 3 more tomorrow and go see the pearly gates. Go see whatever gates you're going to go see. Whatever religion you believe in, you're going to go see the gates. Fantastic. Most people, when they're on that door, when they're taking those medications, just barely keep their heart moving. I don't see an issue. Where I strike a chord is in those young individuals, because I went through hard things. You went through hard things. Everyone goes through hard things. I just don't know if I can feel okay saying that, you know what? Yeah, you're 23-year-old in Belgium, not physically harmed, not even in the same vicinity of the bomber. And now you have this depression that's going to affect you forever or for 5 years. Now, dude, you got me. We're saying, hey, are you going to harm other people longer? I get some dogs barking here. So I don't know, man. But then again, who am I to tell you? And that's where you get me too. And dude, you put me on my heels multiple times where I'm like, oh, fuck, my argument does not hold up. I like people to have their own rights. So I think you're right. I think you should have the ability to do this, with the caveat that you need to make others around you somewhat notified.
Love it.
Right? I think we're on the same page there. I don't think you can do this without a third party. Doctor, you.
Yes, loved one. Either spouse or next of kin.
Exactly. It just, I think think a lot of people, unfortunately, in their life, not knowing the love around them. And that right there will probably make them never think about the ending of their life again.
Ever. You know,
Right?
and honestly, it's one of those things where I think people take so much for granted now. You know, people think that liking a post on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, whatever the hell, is keeping in touch. People don't do this often.
I know.
Or often enough.
I know.
They honestly think, oh, I liked an Instagram post. I'm good with them. Guys, check on your loved ones. You never know what they're battling. Don't ever make them have the conversation with you. Yeah. But guys, thanks for listening. This was not a fun one to research, to discuss, to take a stance. It sucked. I'm not going to mince words on this one. But I do think we got somewhere. I think we highlighted a very real issue, a very present issue. Also, shout out to our listeners for continuing to feed us various topics. Thank you for that loyal following that we do have. I mean, Cody and I, we've often said off air, this is one of our favorite hobbies. You know, we've actually gotten quite a few people that have been like, man, I really didn't understand your take. And look, Cody and I go about our normal days, our podcast time, very controversial at times. Mm-hmm. But hopefully what you do realize is we do put a lot of time, energy, effort, empathy in our research and try to put this in real terms. And thank you for acknowledging that.
Yeah, and you guys, everybody, shout out to anybody out there that is going through a hard time. Yeah, going through a hard time. The cool thing about hard time is that there's a lot of time that most people have. And this is where it was most conflicting for me, is that I'm 30, Jared's 30, we're 31 or 30, whatever we are, right? I just visualize 30 to me, and I see a lot of years ahead of me. So I think you should be too. If you're listening to this and you have any type of conflicting thoughts, find help. Hell, reach out to us. We probably will respond.
Hell yeah.
We see something like that, reach out to us.
Hard times,
somebody.
You know what they make? Strong people.
Exactly. We want to make you stronger because it's in the long run, if you're stronger, we're stronger, our families are stronger.
Our communities are stronger.
Yeah, reach out to us. We'll find you help. You know, I don't want any of our listeners going through anything. And, you know, even if you reach out and maybe there's 20, maybe there's 50, maybe there's 100. This is a sensitive topic. And there's a lot of people out there that want to help. So really appreciate you guys listening. Give us a follow wherever you listen. And then also, of course, start finding us on YouTube. We are trying to grow our YouTube population. We were out here even barefoot tonight.
Barefoot blue jean night, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, not me. I'm wearing like little sweatpants, short things. You got barefoot blue jeans. You better looking than me.
Yeah. I'm pulling a Kenny. It was Kenny Chesney song, Barefoot Blue Jean Night, right?
I think that's Luke Bryan.
Whatever.
I don't know. Okay, later, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.